Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are joining in from. Thank you so much for being here. It's my privilege and honor to welcome Shaakun. Hi, Shaakun. Thank you so much
Hey
for being
Bhaskar,
here.
good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good, all well.
So
So,
good to be
for
back again so quickly. We just had a discussion on this topic a couple of weeks ago, and
right,
here we are back.
yes. And for those all out there who may be joining it for the first time now, Shakun is a highly sought after business strategy and HR transformation expert in Asia. He also serves as a vice president for SaaS Software as Service Alliances Asia Pacific at Oracle Corporation. Over the last 25 years, Shakun has been a transformation advisor to many Fortune 500 and industry leading companies. During this period, Shakun has been a CEO of Right Management. He was the head of IBM Smarter Workforce and the leader of employee engagement and leadership development practice at Gallup Consulting. What a wonderful journey so far, Shakun, and wishing you all the best in your new role. Congratulations once again.
Thanks, Bhaskar. No, God has been very kind to me, and the journey has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, and as a transformation expert, true to your spirit, you have been disrupting this space with this ethical moonlighting, and I'm just going to share a few media highlights on this topic. There was a Times of India article on how IT companies are worried about moonlighting, especially during the pandemic work from home situation. There's a coverage on People Matters where you spoke about this concept of moonlighting and how ethical moonlighting is the way to go for employers. And you almost strongly urge every employer to look at this from a reframed perspective, not the traditional lens, right? So this is a rethinking strategy for many of us. Really appreciate the kind of inputs and insights you have put in the space. Also, HR world had a coverage, very detailed coverage. Many of our colleagues are also featured in this. Here, it talks about how chief HR officer as a role need to rethink the entire thing. So,
Yeah, indeed, this is really picking up because every problem, Bhaskar, has an opportunity, and I think while we are grappling with the problem, nobody is looking at the opportunity in the way they should be looking at it. And I think my endeavor is to actually give a little direction to the real solution and the power this problem has in itself.
true. So there is a saying, right? Every crisis has an opportunity. I
Indeed.
think this is an opportunity for all of us to evolve and up the game to the next level. Not to see it as a problem or a issue or a challenge. See it from a different perspective. I think that's where this entire thing is moving towards. Any calamity has its own upsides and downside. This is one that could be seen as an upside because of pandemic. It has come to a surface. Many top talented executives who are adept in handling more than one role, where they can find their creative energy flowing, and they can contribute better to society in the best possible way that they think is possible. So I know many of our audience, viewers, and people who have watched this later after our first interaction have asked me this question through email or WhatsApp chat, saying, "Hey, you know what? This is not right. I'm paying for an employee time and mental faculty and their psychological contract for my brand. What if they take out what is very proprietary or intellectual property to my organization and make it available in public domain while they are moonlighting?" And there are a lot of cases out there where insider information has been leaked to an innocuous yogi in the Himalayas, and it has landed many people in soup. So yeah, this is something, a big concern. And you brought out a very beautiful framework last time, FICR, right? And it has
Yeah.
become a very good acronym for all of us to remember. So can you just touch upon that, and then let's move on to today's deeper dive.
Look, all the problems that you have cited, Bhaskar, have been there for time immemorial, and it has got nothing to do with either the intention or the practice of moonlighting. If somebody has, I mean, the yogi that you are mentioning, there is no context of moonlighting here. It is a blatant abuse of power and leaking of information outside of the given mandates and the rules and regulations, right? So moonlighting or no moonlighting, that's a separate issue. It has always been there, it will always remain. Companies will have to find a way of handling that. And then I'm only just saying that these two are separate things. And that's a very sad thing, because a lot of HR people believe that such things can be controlled
Mm.
by by adopting regressive practices, right? Not
Right.
regress, but regressive practices. I mean, this is you can't stop people from maximizing their talent and their engagement by citing that you will not. In fact, uh, it's a known psychological thing. The more you stop people from doing something, the more they will be motivated to go and try out it is
Attraction will
a
be there to find out what is
yeah,
there.
I mean, so I don't think that these are two correlated things.
Right, right. And also, could you touch upon the FICR equation that
Yeah,
you?
so I think that's a very important piece. Please understand. First of all, I don't agree with the statement that you made that people have been employed for buying time or
Yeah.
psychological focus. No, if I'm employed to in an organization, the employee employer contract is about delivering an outcome, right? It
Mm.
is not a psychological construct, it's a business contract where I, in return to benefits and compensation, agree to deliver certain outcomes to the organization which are well defined in my performance management system and agreement and so on and so forth. So that's, it's not a psychological or a floozy contract for that matter. So therefore, if an organization is able to derive that kind of outcome from me, and during that tenure make sure that its four fundamental risks are covered, and I call that as a FICR model because it is just an acronym, FICR, financial risks. So what are the systems and process that you have put in place to ensure that your financial resources are not misutilized? And Bhaskar, let me tell you, it's nothing new. It is when I travel, for example, it's the same risk. How do I make sure that I don't misuse the financial resources of the organization, right? I stands for intellectual resources. Again, whether you allow me opportunities to work elsewhere or not, intellectual property has to be safeguarded, and therefore organizations will have to put systems, processes, and even technology in these days to make sure that leakage is not happening. C stands for competitive information and competitive differentiators.
Mm.
Now again, whether it's Pepsi's formula, which has been for years very beautifully safeguarded, or any other IP. All the organizations are doing that, and it's a usual practice. And lastly, uh, it's R stands for other resources. Do I use office premises for moonlighting, for example? I may have laptops and iPads and other equipment being provided from the organization, so that's a resource that is meant for a particular role only. So these
Right.
are the four things that organizations need to safeguard, and outside of it, let people bloom, let people utilize their talents in whichever way. I mean, it's not different. Tomorrow you may stop me from playing cricket, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I may be running a cricket academy. So how is it different? Why would you stop me? That's a regressive practice, right? You can't do that.
True.
I may be a singer, for example. You can't stop me from doing that. So I think that's something that a lot of organizations are not able to understand. There is a lot of ambiguity in the HR fraternity in terms of, oh, it's a big no kind of a thing, without even people understanding or debating. And I'm really glad and grateful, Bhaskar, that you've taken this initiative to educate the world at large. I think it's a great service that you are doing.
Thank you, Shakun. And in fact, for me, I'm on the other side, right? I'm on a gig worker, I should say. I'm doing some assignments and trying to see what's happening in that horizon. And I see people divided equally, right? Right now, I have Ashish, I have Raghu, all of them online. They are representing the HR fraternity. There is a kind of a middle split. Half of them say that it's the right thing and we need to move towards putting regulations and policies and frameworks in place to ensure people don't take advantage of this, and the other half saying why at all go there, right? Why do you have to uh, tame something which is not required? For example, as you can see on the screen, Ashish has a viewpoint. He says put control mechanism, track, supervision if someone is really worried about moonlighting, and why blame the resource?
Beautiful,
The other
Ashish.
side,
Absolutely.
yeah, the other side is saying why at all you open that up? Why not to give any freedom for these guys to think about other job? That means they have more time at hand. They could do innovative projects by the side for the company. Why waste the time, energy and resource on a side project? Then everyone would start doing and I would have no control, and I will lose control. That's another side of the argument.
So very beautiful points, and I think there are so first of all, division on an opinion is a very natural thing, and I'm glad that it is here. If everybody agreed to it, then there would be a problem.
Yeah.
People are even divided on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, for example. And it's a natural thing with human beings. Now, that being said, a few things that you mentioned. One, do people have more time? The answer
Mm,
is no. People don't
mm,
have more time, they have more talent. And
mm,
therefore, some of the smart people are able to finish their deliverables in the time which is lesser than the allotted time. Many years ago, Bhaskar, I'll tell you, it reminds me of my school days, and I say it at the cost of humility. The time allotted for examinations was about 3 hours. Now, I was a very fast writer. I could write very fast. I was not the topper, right? I did not get the best marks, but
mm.
whatever little I knew, I could finish my examination in about hour and a half. And after that, I did not know anything, right? So whatever score I had to get, it was done and dusted in that 1.5 hours. So I would walk out of the examination hall as soon as it was allowed. I believe they had a rule like first 1 hour you have to spend even if you don't write anything.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that I
Otherwise, you
was
may
super.
have run a risk of leaking the paper.
Yeah, all that is there. So that is their FICR model, which I respect, but that doesn't mean that the whole system was wrong.
Mm,
uh, I was talking to somebody in the software industry, and they said it's very, very ambiguous to figure out how many hours a work is really good for, right? So
mm.
therefore, we allocate a band. Some people do it very quickly. Some people are not able to do it within that time span. Because if some people if the argument is that some people have extra time, then the reverse argument is there are a lot more who are not able to finish it on time, and therefore time is little. So will you go and give them more time? So I think that's an absurd logic. And today
Mm,
I'm purposely using certain strong language here, because it's a point that needs to be nailed down.
mm.
Now, the nature of roles, jobs, industries are different. So, therefore, there will always be a case
Yeah.
where 100% ethical moonlighting is not possible,
Mm.
just as 100% flexi working is not possible. So, if you
Right.
are running a nuclear plant and you are an engineer who is managing the machines there, you gotta be there, right?
Mm.
If you're a pilot, for example, you have to be there. You can't do remote functioning. But the difference should not be at the ideological level. And I think this pandemic is a great example. The world was divided whether flexi working is right or wrong before the pandemic.
Yep.
One big shift happened, and it is not a question about whether it is right or wrong, is a stupid question now. The question
Mm.
now is it feasible in this particular role or not? The answer is fair. So I
Yeah.
think either we can embrace this reality and be prepared for it, or some organizations, some individuals will actually continue to wait for an external force to come and hit them, pretty much like the pandemic did. And all the people who thought earlier that flexi working was counterproductive, they were caught in a surprise and totally unprepared for this kind of a thing. And I know, I mean, I work for Oracle, and therefore we know that first few weeks certain organizations that took a lot of pride that no, we are a very controlled organization and disciplined organization, we don't allow all these kind of things, they did not know what to do. There
Mm.
were CIOs, and I don't want to name here, but CIOs who got heart attacks.
Oh my.
One very big CIO died because of the stress, or perhaps whatever reason, because suddenly you had to make that shift. So what I'm saying is that the difference should not be at the ideological level. People have to
Yeah.
understand that it is a
It's
way
not
of
one
working.
size fits all.
It is then you may say that it is not. I mean, I would love to be a pilot who could work from home, for example, right? But right now it is for a doctor. Right now it is not possible. So we understand that yes,
Mm.
I this is a great practice to do, but it is not possible to do it here, which is fine. Which is fine.
Yeah. On a
That's
lighter
how
note,
we look at it.
unless you are a drone pilot.
Yeah, that is happening. So it's only a matter of
Yeah.
time.
So I
I
still
will tell
remember.
you, Bhaskar, since on a lighter note, Cred
Mm,
has come up with a very beautiful ad featuring Chacha Chaudhary. Some of you, at least
yes.
people from North India, would remember Chacha Chaudhary.
Yeah.
It's
The
the
comic
most
character.
brilliant depiction of what is happening in our times and
Mm,
how non-progressive thinking could just kill organizations. Anybody who's
true.
not watched that, I'm a Cred user, by the way, and I'm promoting Cred on this because of that reason. But I think that's the most brilliant ad that they have come up with, showcasing how the world is changing and how we need to embrace new
Yeah.
technologies and new practices.
True, true. In fact, I was just recollecting this period where all CTOs were promoting bring your own device, and they
Hmm.
were contemplating how they can use that in their organization to reduce cost. At the same time, the maintenance, all that jing bang comes along with, and sustainability and whatnot. So that was
And
seen
it
as
has unleashed phenomenal
yeah.
value ever since it became a accepted business practice.
Right. Now there are generations which are born on cloud. They not have seen any software being installed. It's all available as a service. You are heading a function, which is software as service. Earlier, we used to buy a CD, install it, wait for upgrades to come, and so on. That disruption is happening in every field. Now, my next question to you is: how is it going to disrupt our economic world as we know it?
I think it will be total disruption. What I
Hmm.
mean by total disruption, first of all, please understand the whole concept of talent ROI and the business case of talent will completely be revamped. Imagine a role that you have budgeted, say, $200,000 for a year, and that work in the context of ethical moonlighting could be delivered in, say, $50,000 a year. What will you do? Right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that will completely get transformed. Now, imagine if your cost of a VP is $500,000, and another company is getting the same work of a VP done at $100,000. Look at the talent ROI and therefore the competitive advantage one organization will have by embracing the new practice, and the competitive disadvantage that other organization will get pushed into because of its rigidity. So that
Hmm.
is, I think, the most important disruption that is going to happen.
True.
The other disruption that is going to happen is in the whole aspect of how people look at job satisfaction, and that will go totally different.
Hmm.
If I am a person who has opportunity to make as much money as I want through ethical moonlighting practices, my whole concept of evaluating a job opportunity will undergo a phenomenal change. How will I
Hmm.
look at benefits, insurance, stocks, ESOPs, cash component of my compensation, satisfaction with the with the location of my office, the environment that is their culture, everything will get disrupted. So that's the second big disruption. The
Hmm.
third big disruption, Bhaskar, would be around how people look at the whole idea of career progression and success as a whole.
Hmm.
Today, it's a very linear thing. I'll start as a GET, and then I'll become a project manager, and then maybe a manager of managers, then a product manager, and now that will become totally irrelevant in
Yeah.
new scheme, right? So when it will hit us, and when it will become fully mature, everything will have to be relooked at. And therefore, there are organizations that are already relooking at the way they measure performance of people, or their annual compensation review cycles, or their performance management system. So I think majority of the things will get disrupted. However, these three things would be, I think, the biggest disruptions. One is the ROI of talent. Second is the way people assess jobs. Third is the way people look at career progression and overall work life.
Beautiful. In fact, on the ROI part, you're bang on. People are asking, why should I pay this much for one talent, whereas I can get a bunch of greens and I can mold them to my culture, right? That's ongoing conversation. The second part on the job getting redefined, it's all getting de-skilled, as I could see it. A bunch of skills combined together can be a person's role, right? No more the straight jacketed approach of you are in one department and you are supposed to do only a particular kind of job. If you have a more bandwidth, you can jump and do something else. And there are organizations where they have Slack and other mechanisms where they can put in their talent to say, hey, I'm good at these things. I can design a brochure, I can compile a financial report, I can do due diligence, but I'm part of, say, HR or a legal department. I can jump in and take those assignments. We had this discussion with Gopal, who is a strong proponent of gig economy, right? Mr. Gopal Iyer, and he was there on this channel earlier. So we are talking about de-skilling and making it into a part of fungible group of skills rather than one simple job description. All these are disruptions happening, and this is something, while we are watching the space, how about as an employer? We spoke about HR community, we spoke about other stakeholders. What about the employers? What kind of mindset shift the employers are prepared for, and what need to happen in that space?
So, Bhaskar, since I have this habit of coming up with acronyms on this question, I have yet another acronym,
Yeah.
ETA. ETA, of course, traditionally stands for something else, but I think employers need a new look at ETA. The
Mm-hmm.
first is they need to have an empowering mindset, not a
Mm.
controlling mindset. What do we mean by empowering mindset? Empowering mindset is again where, uh, see, empowerment and control don't go hand in hand. So, to your earlier question, when you started saying that there are concerns that leaders have, how will we control people? That in itself is a faulty paradigm, right? So, you
Right.
need to have empowering mindset, which means how do you make sure that people are delivering at the best, at their best? How do you make sure that they have got all the resources that people would need to deliver, and yet have control over those resources? Because as we said in the FICR model, that it is organizations resource, right? T stands for trust, trusting, so empowering and then trusting. Trusting means that you got to trust people. A person has delivered what he or she is delivering. Then you don't should be you should not be grappling with question, oh, I think he has extra time, let's milk him more, or let's get more out of her. It's not good, right? You gave
Mm.
me some money to get some work done, I've done that, period. That's over, our
In fact,
transaction is
that's the
over, right?
major problem of the word resource. We are starting looking at people as things. what
Correct.
your
So
means
if
to an
you,
end.
and that's my argument as a resource myself, is that when all this time you have called me human resource, then why are
Mhm.
you expecting that psychological thing that you talked about earlier when you started, right? You can't have hypocrisy. Come on,
Yep.
HR has
Yep.
too much of a hypocrisy, I believe. So you have to be trusting that, okay, I trust that people will not misuse the
Mm.
resources. I trust that people will not leak my information. I trust that people, and you are not trusting others, you are trusting the systems, processes,
Yeah.
capabilities, and the values that you have put in place, right? So I mean, I've been in this consulting business for a lot of time. There are many a times when people ask that I can't trust my employees. So I say, no, the
Mm.
first thing is you should say, I can't trust my own systems, processes, and the way I'm managing things. It's not about
Yes.
trusting the employees. That's an outcome, right? So
Mm.
you should create an environment where all these things are not required. And please understand, people misuse things because of excessive control.
Yeah.
People misuse things because of lack of empowerment. We have seen in very progressive organizations, for example, many years ago, uh, uh, organizations came up with these. I don't want to name a particular organization, but it was very interesting. It is a high technology organization. They put vending machines for all sorts of electronic devices for their people, whether it is an iPhone or an iPad. As an
Wow.
employee, you could just go to the vending machine and pick up a latest iPhone or an iPad or a laptop or whatever you want,
Mm.
without any control. And I was visiting their campus in the US, and I said, oh, this is so cool. I mean, uh, how does it work? He says it's interesting. Our average uptake is pretty much in line with the average life of the product and the average requirement. So he
Oh.
said that when we had those approval processes, that time also it was the similar consumption now. Because when people have that access, people don't have any motivation to misuse it because they know it's lying there, and whenever I will genuinely need it, I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
But if that is not so, that's a very important piece. And finally, A is about adaptability. You need to have a very adaptable mindset. There was a time when uh, this was a practice that you are bound to work with only one organization. Now the external environment is changing, external world is changing, so you got to be adaptable.
Yeah.
So
True.
my very strong opinion is that HR leaders, business leaders who are just not open to this idea are not displaying adaptable mindset, and sooner or later they will fear the brunt of it.
True.
And
True.
you have to. It's like any other societal change if you look at it, right?
Mm.
I mean, Saudi Arabia has allowed women to drive, for example, which is a very big
Shift.
testimony of their adaptability, I would say,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why would an organization in India or in US say that no, no, I can't allow ethical moonlighting because somewhere it doesn't gel with my thought process? It
True.
has to
True.
change. It has to change.
You remind me of
Therefore,
two.
ETA is empowering mindset, trusting mindset, and adaptability mindset. Thanks for putting that up beautifully there, Bhaskar.
So you remind me of two stories, Shakun. One is when I met Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of legendary, Stephen Covey.
Stephen Covey,
He
yeah.
came to Mumbai and we had a session where he talked about the speed of trust. And
Mm.
he showed a short video clip where in New York City, a hot dog seller by the roadside had a peculiar problem of giving out change for customers' dollar bills. And what he did, he kept a bunch of coins and said, "You take whatever is rightfully yours," and then he left it. And he went and asked, what made you to trust customers? What if they take more than what they put in? He said it has never happened. Even if it has happened, it's very fraction, right? And in fact, they have left more money, and they did not even take the change that they deserve. I have by end of the day, I have more money than what I can count. So that is one example. The other example is this happened. This is a incident in a book by Mr. Miller in Question Behind Question. There he talks about a Best Buy kind of a company where customer was in a rush. He had a $10 bill. The item costed only $2.35, right? And the person who is at the counter did not have any change, and it was just first interaction on the till. So what she did, she took money from her pocket, put it in the cash box, and then asked the customer to rush. Thank you so much. She gave the money back to him. The customer was really dazzled. He came back in the evening after his work was over and gave a $500 gift to this agent, and that became a big news in the entire shop floor. And the manager was called. How did this happen? And that lady said, yeah, it's a big cumbersome thing to send my money to the central office through the air tubes and get the cash back. Instead, I can see that this customer is genuinely in need. So I quickly thought of it, and she felt empowered. So this empowerment mindset, trusting mindset, adaptability mindset, I could see the connection. Whether pandemic or not, these are enduring values, right, for any employer. I think
and
when we
and
apply
and
it in
and
this
and,
context.
and I will tell you, Bhaskar, these are universal principles. They work
Yes.
irrespective. You've given very beautiful examples. Let me also narrate something that happened with me myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not in New York, not in New Delhi, in a place called Haridwar. Right, Haridwar
Oh.
is a religious place, and I like to eat street food. So if those of the people who are listening here, if you are familiar with Haridwar, and if you are into the streets of Haridwar, and if you are into street food, there is a very famous puri shop. The puri aloo they serve, and it's way inside, and it's a 100-year-old shop. So it
Right.
so happened that one day I went there and I ordered, and it's like it's a shop that you just go in, you eat, and then you come out, you tell the counter what you have eaten, and he'll charge you money, and then you can go.
Hmm.
One day I had my a meal with my family and my kid, and I was talking, and we were just so happy that we just forgot to pay, and I walked out of the shop, and then I started walking on the street. It's a very busy street, like Haridwar street, right? uh,
Hmm.
After 15 or 20 minutes I realized, oh, I haven't paid. So I took a U-turn and came back to the shop, and I said to the owner who was sitting here that, "What, sir? I didn't pay. I just went away, and you didn't even remind me." He said, "As a policy, I don't remind because I'm too busy, and God has given me so much that even if you have eaten and not paid me, it's fine with me." Having said that, he said that the real power is that you really come back to me. You're still
Ah.
paying me, right? So actually, he said that there is no reason for me to trust any of my customers or remind anyone. It's as simple as that. It was
Hmm.
so profound, so powerful.
True. True. I think
And
that's.
unfortunately, multinationals and big billion-dollar enterprises don't trust their employees. It's a shame.
Hmm. I think this is a very important aspect when it comes to employer, boss, the so-called HR fraternity who is into managing performance. And this is a month of performance management across the globe, as we all know. This is a very important aspect of how do we bring this ETA, right? Yeah, so that's also another acronym that comes to my mind: estimated time of arrival. Once you have all these three mindsets, you have arrived. Whether pandemic or not, you will have a bulletproof, future for this. So that leads
And
me to the next question.
Bhaskar, what is most sad about this? This ETA, unlike a lot of other organization or culture transformation thing, this ETA has to start from the top.
Yes.
It has to start from the CEO. It has to start from the CHRO. It has to start from the CFO. The whole problem is when the top leaders of the organization do not imbibe this ETA, then the
Yeah.
whole culture becomes toxic, and then they start blaming new and evolving practices, and that creates downfall of organizations. Organizations die because of that.
True. True. And all this news
Ricardo
necessity.
Semler, for example, perhaps was the first person. I'm sure you remember the great book, which was not as popular, but it's called what? The 7 Day Weekend,
Ah,
where
4 day
Ricardo
weekend. Right?
Semler, who runs Semler
Oh
Corporation,
yeah.
said that employees are free to decide how much they should be paid, when they want a break, when they want a leave, and so on and so forth. And that was a great case study. I've
Maverick.
lost track of what similar organization did since then, but I think it was a great thing.
They have evolved. I kept a tab on them last year as well. They have evolved and they have moved on to spreading this message across the world.
Wonderful. So I read the book about 15 years ago where
Yeah.
actually it was written that it is only time that will tell. And what I'm hearing you say is that they are surviving and they are perhaps
Yes.
thriving.
Yes.
So it's all good. Because see, creating a multi-trillion dollar organization is not the end in mind. The end in
Right.
mind is that can we continue doing the good thing and spreading the happiness throughout our lifespan, right? That's the whole point.
True. True. So that brings me to the next question, Shakun. There's a always a turning point or a inflection point in any change, right? Do you think the large corporations need to adopt this first, or the masses would have to force large corporations to adopt this mindset?
Well, I don't know the answer to this, Bhaskar. It's a disruption that is happening,
Mm,
and where it begins is irrelevant.
mm,
You know, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because see, what is happening is that whoever embraces it first will have an advantage.
mm,
Who starts does not really matter. You know, it's like the Egyptian revolution, for example. Who started doesn't really matter, but once it snowballs into a significant whole, then I think it is benefiting. The good part is that the push and pull is happening from both. There are very large organizations which are embracing it and promoting it, and there are very large organizations that are totally against it. At the same time, there are small organizations which are totally against this, and small organizations which are very excited about it. So I think
right.
it is kind of like you said 50-50 right now, but very soon the momentum will pick up and few organizations will get left out.
True. And I'm also displaying Mr. Dakshinamurthy's comment. Trust is a vital Trust is vital in current VUCA business scenario. It's not only between principal and agent, but also should be the entire business ecosystem or stakeholders. Absolutely,
Wow,
very well
I
said.
just love this statement here, because it is not between principal and agent, and I think there is no place for principal or agent right now. It's ecosystem which has stakeholders. Very beautifully said, Dakshan.
True, true. And in fact, when we talk about adoption, rate of adoption, typically the 80-20 rule, you can see it in play. When the large organizations adopt it, it becomes easier for smaller organizations to follow suit. Um, Maybe if so and so company has adopted, that means it's a good practice. Let me also, put it in practice here. So that's the case. I think I agree with what you're saying. It doesn't matter where it starts and how it pans out. It's going to be important and interesting for us to see how this becomes a reality soon. The sooner the better, and the early adopters would see benefit accumulating.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, in terms of arguments to, favor ethical moonlighting, I'm not even going the direction of moonlighting. I'm saying ethical moonlighting because I think that's the way forward. Uh, there are many organizations, rural, semi-urban, urban, where people are located in these areas. It's so critical for them to understand the debate, what is for ethical moonlighting and what is against. Could you unpack that area for us, please?
See, as I said, anything that is not detrimental to the FICR interest of the organization is ethical.
Mm,
Now, whether it is because of moonlighting or because of a random act of an employee, anything that has an impact on FICR of organization is unethical and therefore not to be allowed. But
mm,
that being said, I think ethical moonlighting as a practice will evolve like LTA. In good old days, we used to have LTA. Now, if you
Yes.
look at LTA, it's very interesting. Everybody is entitled for that. About 50% of the people actually take advantage of that at any given point in time.
Yeah.
100% of the people get touched by it, or 100% people practice it or leverage it at least once in their lifetime and career. So I think ethical moonlighting will become exactly like LTA, where at any given point in time, about 50% people will religiously and regularly leverage it, use it. 100% people will touch it in some way or the other at least once across their lifetime and career.
Mm. Right. Absolutely.
Because
And
pretty
is
much
there?
like LTA, it will not be feasible for a 50% people at any given point in time. They may not be in a position, they may not have Anil, thanks. I'm glad that you like some of this fun stuff that we are doing here today, because
Yes.
after all, it's a Saturday afternoon. The weather in Delhi is becoming very pleasant, and actually life is all about these real things that are happening. And I challenge anybody to come and tell me how ethical moonlighting,
Hmm.
once launched properly, will not follow the same trajectory as LTA. It's the entitlement of everyone. At least once everybody will try it. At any given point in time, 50% people will use it regularly or religiously,
In fact,
and that should give a lot of solace to the fence sitters, because
yeah, yeah.
uh, and let me tell you, LTA had an equal amount of risk or compliance risk associated with it as we are perceiving ethical moonlighting today.
Yeah, true. You can get bills.
Yeah, you could get bills, you could do all sorts of things, and then organization tried doing a whole lot of stuff. And at one
Mm.
point, it said, "Oh, it is your money. Just pay the tax and take the bloody money away, right?" And then we realized, why was it so complicated? Emotional bank account. Yeah, that we are
Yes.
talking about. Yeah, and I think allowing ethical moonlighting today is one of the biggest deposits that
Yes.
organizations can do in the emotional bank accounts that they hold with their employees. Anilji, thank you so much for reminding that.
Brilliant. So I'm just doing a wild
And,
thinking
and
here.
by the way, not allowing that will be a withdrawal from the EBA.
True. True. So I'm just extending this thought and being wild in my imagination. Let us fast forward and go 5 years or 6 years, 10 years from now, where being an ethical moonlighter could be a chip on my shoulder, right? And I'm so talented that I can do more than one job, one primary job and other gigs. And every employer where I work, they all know, and it's all transparent, and it's all fine. Would that create any discrimination at work? People who choose not to take that option would be seen as not capable or not competent enough to do multiple gigs.
Again, Bhaskar, it is akin to the skills revolution that is underway today.
Hmm.
Today, if there is an employee who doesn't boasts of multiple skills, you know, is an average Joe, or not even an average Joe, actually a below average Joe. Uh, I recently took up another role, and I was talking to an old time friend, and he said, "What are you doing? You've again taken a new role, and again you're trying to do something that you've never done." And then it happened so that, you know, uh, there was something called as an inconsistent CV about 10-15 years ago, which was a bad thing to have.
Hmm.
Today, it's a very powerful thing to have, and that's how the world is changing. So
Yeah.
again, I recently spoke to a very dear friend of mine who's the MD of one of the largest executive search firms. And
Hmm.
Bhaskar, this is what he narrated. He said that recently I came across a person, a very senior person, a CXO level person, who actually on his CV mentioned that he is concurrently working for three organizations.
Ah, okay.
And he said, on the face of it, I didn't understand. So I asked that candidate or that person, that how is it possible? He said, yeah, it is possible. All my three employers know that I am concurrently working for three employers.
So already the
He said,
movement has
then
started.
I did a background verification. I spoke to those three employers, and everybody said that, yeah, we know that he's also working for some other organization. And
Hmm.
that is happening here and now today. And then he says that it opened a completely different, perspective. And
Yeah.
this is one example today that I'm narrating to you. Maybe 2 years down the line, if we were to have a similar conversation, we'll not mention it as a big aha, because it will be a normal, regular practice, right? You
Yeah.
are a consultant, for example, Bhaskar. You are doing multiple consulting assignments with multiple companies, sometimes even competitors at the same time.
Yes.
Just add one more layer to that, maybe that you also pick up a full-time assignment somewhere. How is it different? It's no different, and it will
Hmm.
happen.
Hmm. Wow.
Because if companies don't do it by themselves, the external environment will force them.
Hmm.
It's like, I'll give you a very interesting example. There was a time when the recruitment ad said that we only want people from IIMs and XLRIs. I never went to IIM or XLRI, so I used to feel very frustrated and very unhappy about it. Then came when they said, okay, we need at least 60% in graduation. Then they realized, oh, that is also not helping, because there are not enough people, available in the market. Now, about 2 years ago, companies like perhaps Deloitte or KPMG, even Apple for that matter, actually said educational qualification is of no consequence whatsoever. I don't
Yeah.
care whether you went to IIT and whether you have a BTech or a diploma or ITI, till the time you can
Or
program and
homeschooled.
the app, show it to me and you're welcome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so exactly the same thing is happening again, and we are not realizing that it is nothing new, it is nothing significant. It is yet another direction that the world of work is taking.
True. True. So I have one more question from Raghu. Let's take that up. Can employees also question about ethical benefits provided to them when we talk of visible versus invisible benefits?
Raghu, maybe you need to
Unpack.
elaborate a bit more. I know this is a great question. I'm just trying to understand this question in the same zeal in which you have poised that. So maybe if you could type in another line or
Yeah.
so clarifying what exactly is the question, that will be very helpful.
Perhaps he's referring to tangible and intangible benefits. Like, I have a logo on my CV that I work for such an organization. That could be a intangible.
In fact, while I still wait for Raghu to respond to that, I would go up to the extent of saying that it's time for employees to ask
Hmm.
how much ethical performance and unethical performance the organization is extracting from them.
Right.
Right? So, what is ethical performance? Ethical performance is that am I'm allocated 8 hours to do a particular work,
Hmm.
and I will not be given. So majority of the people are overworked today. Managers, organizations know that they have allocated more work than planned for to a particular individual. In the larger scheme of things, I believe it is an unethical performance extraction by an employer.
Hmm. True.
However, they talk about it in the garb of employee engagement, discretionary effort, going that extra mile, stretch assignments, and so on and so forth. What do you mean by a stretch assignment? It's a it's a facade to an unethical performance extraction, to my mind, right? And that's how they should look at it. And then, of course, there are ethical and unethical benefits, and I think. People talk about it, and Raghu, to your point, ethical unethical benefit to my mind would be when an organization negotiates the location for and we've seen that, IT companies say we'll give you a project in a different country, and not pay you as per that, right?
Yeah. I
It's
think
an
he's referring
unethical,
to
yeah,
tangible,
visible benefit,
intangible.
absolutely. Recognition, award, performance bonus, so all those are things. And I think that's where I earlier used the term hypocrisy. There is so
Hmm.
much of hypocrisy in HR, in and I'm saying I'm fine with that. Only thing I'm saying is that let us be fair. We do certain hypocritical things, we do certain unethical performance extractions. We should also allow the employees to breathe, right? They also should have. So if you can call me and give me work during my personal hours, why should I not attend to my personal work in your work hours, right?
Yes. So even Mr. Dakshinamurthy is agreeing. We are considering majorly only ability, potential than certifications.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
There's one other view from Ashish. Again, this is the divide that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, yeah, these
It
are
is,
all friends here, and I'm very happy that next time we should have not just the two of us speaking, but everybody should come, and we need to find
let's
another
do
new
that.
platform where everybody we can all fight and howl and debate, bang the tables like we used to do in the olden days.
Nation wants to
I think
know.
we were having such passionate conversations with
We
Ashish
could do
multiple
that, Shagun.
times.
Yes. So he's saying put all such people in gig employment model. Again, this maybe it's coming from a mindset that it has to be treated separately. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
My thought is, what happens if all your employees move to the gig employment model?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not our prerogative, it is the prerogative. I mean, a person like Bhaskar, who was the top talent in companies like Satyam, I know him from those days, Tata. One day he decided to walk out and become a gig player, right? It is not his fault, or it is not his loss. He has gained in all aspects. It is the loss of perhaps the Tatas, or perhaps the Mahindras, or erstwhile Satyam, to having lose that. So I think it's the same question, which is that story when the CFO asks what happens if we train people and they
Yeah.
leave us, and somebody asks what happens if we don't train and then they don't leave us.
They stay
So
with
it
us.
is not about putting them, because if you I'll tell you, if you put them in the gig employment model, they will
Hmm.
not come back, because they would realize it's a much better life. It's like entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Gig is yet another form of entrepreneurship. So I think there is more risk. So first of all, anybody who's willing to move to the, it has to be seen as a retention strategy and not a control mechanism. Let me be
Hmm.
very clear here. This
Yes.
is a retention strategy and not a control mechanism. So the retention strategy is, I retain you as an employee and I allow ethical moonlighting. Otherwise, any which ways you're leaving me. Once you are leaving me, the new person who's coming has already tasted moonlighting in the rest of 50% of the ecosystem that is promoting that. How will you
Right.
retain that person? How will you in first place, how will you attract that person? Then how will
Yes.
you retain that person? How will you engage that person? And is that control worth it? The question,
Hmm.
bigger question is that control worth the effort and the opportunity cost here? In certain cases, the answer may be no. And I repeat and reiterate, Bhaskar and Ashish, in certain cases, it will be an imperative.
Hmm.
If you work for Indian army, you can't be moonlighting ethically with the Pakistani army or Chinese army, right? It's a no-brainer, right?
Yes.
So I'm saying in 50% cases, it will be absolutely impractical to allow that. But at
Hmm.
the mindset level, so your question, Ashish, why it should not be done? I believe it should not be done in the interest of retaining and attracting the right talent, and not really controlling.
Right, true. In fact, this question triggered another concept, nudge. You must be familiar with, right? Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein, they brought out this concept of nudge. How do we uh, steer the behavior of a person to the right side, right? It's an ethical way of shifting behaviors of people. Uh, what is good for them? If I want to stay healthy, I should stay away from the cookie jar. So I should naturally gravitate towards fruits and healthy alternatives. Similarly, when we talk about masses like big countries, there's a instance mentioned in this book, the recent edition which came out last year. They said opting out as a nudge strategy. So organ donation is a very debatable topic, right? So some people say it's my body, my right. Government should not have any say in it. It's my willingness to say I would like to donate my organs when something happens to me. At the end. So opt out is a strategy that they experimented in few European countries, where a baby is born in the hospital, naturally is taken as an organ donor, right? And the person has to opt out if they don't want to be part of that program. And that has drawn some kind of debate as well. Let us consider that. But the concept I really liked, when you have to bring in mass change, you need to create some nudge strategies, the ethical ones, right? Like what you mentioned, make this as a default option. Everyone can do gig work. Don't put them in a separate bucket. If you don't want to be doing that, you could opt out anytime. That would bring a big disruption in this space, I guess.
Yeah, and for example, when you ask people to mark their attendance every day, you
Hmm.
are nudging them to be more disciplined.
Yeah.
So, hypothetically speaking, if you ask everybody to declare the moonlighting activities that they have done in the past 1 month as a monthly rigor, you're nudging them.
Yeah.
Bhaskar, there is another side of the nudge, by the way.
Hmm.
As an individual, I am constantly getting nudged towards ethical moonlighting. So
Hmm.
imagine a Saturday like night like this today. I go and catch up with my friends. One of the friends says that, hey, you know what? I just picked up a project and I'm doing this. I ask him, oh, how are you able to do that? Oh, my company allows me to do that. It's a
Hmm.
nudge that is implanted in my mind. I come back and question, why can't I do it? Maybe I
Yeah.
have a use case in mind. I have a business case. I have a need to do that. And then suddenly, my whole thing is shaken. My attrition intention gets, I would like to go and work with the same company. Then I call the person and I say, hey, can you get me a job in your company? Company says, yeah, I can hire you, but we'll give you 10% a little lesser money. I say, no problem. I'll make 30% more by your policy. What will you do? What will you do in those kind of scenarios, you know? And
Hmm.
trust
Hmm.
me, if it will not happen, believers like me will go out and shout about it and just color everybody's minds, right? So even if it
Yeah.
is not happening, Bhaskar will make sure that so many people see this video, at least five organizations will get motivated to start this. So what will you do, right? What will we do?
You can't
So it
contain
is a
this.
change
Yeah.
that is happening. It's like Holi, no? You know, Holi is coming. You can't say, ke, I will save myself. You know, somebody somewhere will throw a balloon on you or some little color on you. Might as well participate. It's a day of Holi today. Just embrace it.
Yeah. True. True. There's one more question from Mr. Dakshinamurthy. Gig can be a retention strategy. At the same time, most HR processes can be out of scope in the gig work model. Is it like PMS?
Actually, to my mind, I will tell you of the all the functions that exist, HR is the most gigable,
Uh,
right?
yes.
If you ask me, you could actually run the whole HR function on gigs. That's it. And that's also the reason why HR consulting perhaps is such a big industry. You know, you've got trainers running entire OD functions. You know, so you could do that. I think it anything and everything can be done like that. There are companies that are even running their R&D in an outsourced or a gig fashion, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just about the mindset, creative thinking, and putting the right systems and processes in place.
True. True. Cool. So thank you, Shakun. I think it's wonderful catching up with you every time. And as you rightly said, maybe 6 months, 8 months down the line, we will revisit this topic again to see how far the needle has moved. Let it be
Yeah,
a
and I will be
longitudinal
very
study.
proud if the world embraces this more and there's a needle movement. I'll be very proud that Bhaskar, you and I made our little contribution to this large
Of
transformation.
course. And the credit goes to you for coining this term, ethical moonlighting. There are many fans out there. And even as we speak today, we have a few of them who says it's really a nice concept. Yeah, Anil is there. He loved the concept of ethical moonlighting, right? So I think this is a big mind shift that's happening on the ground. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of media is also noticing this. big
Yeah, in
organizations,
fact,
associations like
series
NASSCOM is
of
also
articles
taking
are
notes.
coming out because I have spoken to a lot of publications, including you talked about Economic Times and Times of India, People Matters. We've been
HR
speaking to
World.
Fortune, for example, that came to
Yeah.
me asking about some thoughts there. Yeah, so you will see a lot of stuff coming out, and let's continue the debate. Let's continue debating this, right? Hey,
Brilliant.
Bhaskar,
Thank
always
you.
a pleasure. Thank you so much. You have a
Thank you
wonderful
for
day.